NASCAR is finally back, and 2023 will be its 75th anniversary season. And it all kicks off with the Clash, which is now a night race, still at the LA Coliseum though, which I honestly disagree with. I wish the Clash would be a rotating venue. But anyways, the Clash was wild, so let's talk about it. In practice, we finally got to see the cars rolling in again, and the same issues that we saw from last year still keep popping up. Ty Gibbs has the issue with the rocker box. His rocker box caught on fire and he failed to post a qualifying time, so he had to start at the rear of Heat 4 as he was like the 36th overall qualified, only driver to not post a qualifying lap. We also saw a few tempers flaring between Chase Briscoe and Allmendinger, which, come on guys, it's just practice. So anyways, Justin Haley was on the pole for Heat 1, which means that he posted the fastest overall time in qualifying. Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, William Byron were the top 4, which means that they will be the pole sitters for each of their respective hits. And the heat races were full of action too. There were more aggression. Drivers were taking more risks. That comes with the territory of 1 year figuring out after 1 year of figuring out like how this Gen 7 car just drives. You would expect drivers to be more aggressive the second time around in these cars. And this is pretty much like a general idea of what we're gonna see this season. It's just drivers being more aggressive, knowing that what this car brings. This car is a known quantity now, so of course drivers are gonna start like showing the real ability now. They're not gonna be like last year. Drivers were like afraid to like make contact because also a big part of that was that there weren't that many units ready. Like now, teams have their budget more under control now. So, and there's also more cars in their production that like there's more cars. And if a car is damaged, there's also they know how to fix it now. They don't have to scramble like last season. So that's pretty good. Some incidents that happened during the heat races that I remember: Harrison Burton spun out. Almirola won Heat 1. Alex Bowman, Justin Haley, Noah Gragson, Joey Logano advanced. So yeah, outside of that early spin by Harrison Burton, which was actually like early in the race, in the heat race, mind you, the Heat 1 was pretty, there was a lot more bumping and banking that I would like to say more than the entire Clash last year, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Anyways, the Heat 2 was the stack heat because there were like 5 Cup Series champions in that heat. You had Kyle Busch, Truex, Kevin Harvick, Larson, Chase Elliott. The racing was more clean between more veteran drivers. There was a really great battle for the lead between Kyle Busch and Truex. There were like the two drivers were like crossing each other over like for 2 to 3 laps. Just really good stuff. Eventually, a caution came out that interrupted that. Kevin Harvick spinning Austin Cindric after Cindric just bumped him out. Again, typical short track racing. You bumped, you get bumped in return. And then on the restart, Cindric gets spun again. So, just a really tough, heat race for Cindric. He was on the. He automatically will go to Lance Chess qualifier because of that. So the battle for the final transfer spot was really exciting too. Elliott, Stenhouse, and Harvick, they battle it out for the final spot. And Harvick gets it after laying back and just letting Stenhouse and Elliott battle it out. Just, vintage Harvick, the closer. Now in his final season in NASCAR, he manages to advance to the final heat alongside Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, Kyle Larson, and Martin Truex Jr. So 4 out of the 5 Cup champions in this heat, they managed to advance. The only one who didn't was Chase Elliott. By the way, Truex won the heat race, so you know, a real dark horse. Because he also looked fast in practice. I believe he was the fastest guy there. Now the third heat race, there were bent fenders like immediately at the start, but outside of that, it was clean the rest of the way up until the end, or at least that's what it was supposed to look like, until Suarez made his first enemigo of the season by getting into it with Keselowski. And then on the restart, Todd Gilliland, Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, it's a fight for the final two transfer spots, so they were running like 4th, 5th, and 6th. And Blaney just bombs Todd Gilliland into Christopher Bell, and Christopher Bell spins. And then after another restart, this leads to another restart where Hamlin, who had passed Bell for the lead after Bell had been falling back with an ill-handling race car, he manages to win Heat 3, and Suarez gets by Todd Gilliland for the final transfer spot, with Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick, and Ryan Blaney rounding out the 5 guys that will get that will advance to the main event from this heat race. Despite starting from the pole, Bell fails to advance. Again, his car was very loose, but he, alongside Chase Elliott, they will get on the main event via the last chance qualifier. So I wasn't worried too much about that. Now, Heat 4 was the cleanest heat race, which is ironic since Ty Gibbs and Ross Chastain were in this group, surprisingly enough. Byron won the heat, and then Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Ryan Preece, and Eric Jones advanced. Ty Gibbs, despite starting from the back, he finished 6th, and he was surprisingly patient. And on the final lap, he had a chance to get by Eric Jones with the bump and run, but he didn't overdo it. He didn't just dump the guy. He gave it like a little bump, and then it didn't work in the end, but he just let it slide that way. So, really patient, mature racing from Ty Gibbs, and I really hope, again, this is just like a non-points race, exhibition race, but I really hope we get to see more of this version of Ty Gibbs all season long, I would like to say. And just like that, this leads to the last chance qualifiers. 2 50-lap races. The first last chance qualifier was a clean 50-lap race. There were no major incidents outside from a full screen commercial with 20 laps to go. I wasn't watching the race on Fox. I was following the race from the live app. So, again, for those guys who were watching Fox, like that was a big move again. Fox's coverage, it is what it is at this point. Anyways, Michael McDowell led all 50 laps after starting first. I would say from the pole, but he was starting first. He wins with no issues, leading all 50 laps. Christopher Bell and Todd Gilliland advance after they both get by Harrison Burton, with Harrison Burton making the fumble of the race, I would like to say, because he was in prime position to stay in the last chance qualifier, but then I believe he took a corner a bit too high, and this allowed Bell and Todd Gilliland to pass him. I guess he got a bit too hot in one of the corners again. I didn't see it properly. I was watching I believe he was Christopher Bell or Todd Gilliland's on board throughout that race. But anyways, the second last chance qualifier, it was another clean 50-lap race. It felt like the 2022, like last season's Xfinity Series, because the 9, the 54, and the 16 were up front for all 50 laps. And just like how they ran for pretty much the entire race, that's how they finished. 1, 2, 3. Elliott wins, Ty Gibbs second, and Allmendinger third. Again, Ty Gibbs, just like in his hit race, he tried to make a move late in the race. He almost pulled it off, but again, Elliott edged it out. It was a clean move though. And Allmendinger also advances too. And the final spot goes to Austin Cindric by virtue of being the highest ranked driver of the 2022 season who hadn't locked himself in yet. So, 27 drivers in total advance to the main event. Aric Almirola will start first because of, finishing first in his heat race. So, and he immediately pulls away to a 2.5 second lead over Denny Hamlin. And then we have the first caution of the race, where Eric Jones gets spun by Michael McDowell. And again, another issue that we got to see that was very evident last season, and at this point it is what it is with this Gen 7 car. I guess this is something that comes with the territory of having a new car on just a design, just by design. The toe link is broken and he is out of the race. Again, I would like to say that NASCAR teams, they had like a whole, and just NASCAR in general, they just had like a whole off season to, to fix some of the major flaws in this car. But at this point, I've come to realize like some stuff like the broken toe links. I think they're just going to stay, and they're gonna be something that you hope when you wreck, you just hope it doesn't bend the car way too much. Although I wish they could get a fix to those toe links, because a car being taken out of the race by something as little as a toe link, like an internal failure, that would be just devastating. Again, just my opinion. But anyways, restart. We got more bumping and banging. Almirola got bumped out of the lead by William Byron after choosing the wrong lane. First I thought Almirola had chosen the outside lane, and I thought, well, what was going on? Well, it turns out that it was a miscommunication between him and his crew chief, because they thought that the choose lap was gonna be one lap later. But it turns out that Almirola, the choose lap was one lap earlier than they expected, and because of that, Almirola couldn't get to choose. He was stuck on the outside for the restart. So again, that was pretty unfortunate. He lost all that track position that he had, and again, he was another driver to watch, because at a short flat track like the LA Coliseum, a quarter-mile track, Almirola is pretty good at those tracks. I mean, you look at races like at tracks like New Hampshire, Phoenix. He's pretty good at those tracks, so he was definitely a factor, another one of those dark horses to watch at the LA Coliseum. He loses the lead to Denny Hamlin, and then he gets bumped out of I believe the top 5 by William Byron. I even would like to say that he fell out of the top 10, but that was like later on in the race. So anyways, Christopher Bell gets spun, and he hits Joe Logano. That was the next caution. The field stacks up though. Oh, actually I would say no caution though, because Bell managed to straighten out the car. Now that I remember, no, there was no caution for that wreck. What was a caution, however, was Ryan Blaney getting spun, causing another stack up. And this time, Daniel Suarez, Chase Elliott, and Ty Gibbs end up with damage. And then on the restart, Denny Hamlin holds the lead, despite Kyle Busch and Martin Truex challenging. And then we have another caution. There is some 3-wide action between Ty Gibbs, Todd Gilliland, and AJ Allmendinger. Allmendinger ends up spinning after, I believe, contact with Todd Gilliland or Ty Gibbs, I don't know. That race was such a mess, especially towards the end. Anyways, got another restart, and now a new challenger goes to the front. Bubba Wallace bumps Hamlin out of the lead. He drops down to 12. I'm talking about Hamlin because he just cannot get to the bottom. And this is another thing that I saw like all race long. The key to the race was making your move on the bottom. There were like a few guys that eventually later on in the race managed to make the top line work. The most notable of those guys was Ryan Preece. But outside of that, the bottom line was a take it all race long. Hamlin just got straight up right trained. And then just a few laps later, after like blending into the field, he got spun by who else but his old buddy Ross Chastain. And this eventually leads to another restart that culminates with a halftime break on lap 75. And again, Bubba Wallace leads a halftime. And you know how the 22 won in 22? And speaking about Joe Logano, who won the Clash last year, people were already making jokes about, Bubba's leading 23 and 23, just saying. spoiler alert, Baba did not win the race, but for a while, it looked like he was going to. He was right there in contention to win up until the very end, I'm gonna say. So anyways, after a nice Wiz Khalifa concert, which I'm gonna say, in my opinion, it was better than the Ice Cube concert last year, by the way. The second half, we go to the second half, which is way more caution filled. But it all starts with a nice three-way battle for the lead between Bubba Wallace, Austin Dillon, and Martin Truex. But then that battle is interrupted with Ty Gibbs getting spun immediately by Denny Hamlin. Then the next caution, Kevin Harvick gets spun by Todd Gilliland. Then McDowell gets spun by Christopher Bell. And this caused a stack up. I believe Ty Gibbs got hit hard. I believe this is the incident where Ty Gibbs got hit hard in the left rear and he broke, not the toe link, but like a spindle, and that took him out of the race. Then the next caution, Kevin Harvick gets his retaliation on Todd Gilliland. Then another spin, like 3-car spun, Allmendinger, Christopher Bell, Austin Cindric, and I believe Austin Cindric got taken out here. Or I don't know, maybe he ran out of fuel towards the end of the race, because that's another thing. Fuel was a concern because of this like stupid rule of the only green flag laps count. And this wasn't something that like for the last 20 laps. Like this was for the whole, for all of the races, like the heat races, last chance qualifier, the main event. Only green flag laps count, and the race must end under green, which again, that's just stupid in my opinion. And the fact that fuel was a concern towards the end of the race, it just goes to show you how stupid those gimmicks like that really are. Those rules, like having those rules in a NASCAR race really are. Especially in an exhibition race, no less. Anyways, the next restart, Logano sends it into turn 3 and he spins Kyle Busch with basically no plan, just dive bomb it into turn 3 and Kyle Busch gets spun out. Kyle Busch has some choice words about that after the race. And Logano just, typical Logano fashion, just rocks it off. And during all of this mess, to put it lightly, Ryan Preece, he works his way up to the lead on the outside lane. He was definitely the biggest surprise of the race. Not by the fact that he got the lead, but the fact that he managed to get to contention, or get to the lead on the outside lane. And this was by like the 5th or 6th restart. He was already into position to get the lead, or he had already gotten the lead, but he was biding his time. So again, another challenger emerges. And by the time we reach 60 to go, we finally get 2 locks on green flag laps. Like, I don't know if that next green flag run was like 10 laps long, but it certainly felt like it, especially considering like how many cautions were in the second half of this race. But after that little green flag run, we got like a few more cautions. Justin Haley spins after Briscoe just sends Tyler Reddick into him. Then Briscoe himself gets spun by Noah Gragson the next caution. Then Ryan Blaney gets put in the wall by Tyler Reddick after a stack up, and he gets bumped into the wall. Then after these cautions, we get another fairly long green flag run, which correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was like the longest green flag run of the main event. And Truex passes Ryan Preece for the lead. And then a few laps later, Ryan Preece suffers, I don't know if it was a fuel pump failure or an electrical failure, but he lost a few spots. He managed to, get his speed back up to 9th. He managed to get back in. He managed to fire up the engine again, but by that time he was like back in 9th. But then a caution comes out because Michael McDowell ran out of fuel and was unable to get the car off the track. Todd Gilliland, he also ran out of fuel, but he was able to get his car off the track because the caution was not for him, it was for his teammate. And then the final laps, we got 10 to go. Truex pulls away. And Bubba Wallace, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, they battled for second. Then Austin Dillon spins Bubba Wallace for what turns out to be the final caution of this race. And with something like 5 or 6 laps to go, that's like we got the final restart. And Truex holds off the RCR duo and they win the race. And even after the race, there was like some bumping and banging. Kevin Harvick, William Byron, Denny Hamlin. I believe there were some tempers flaring too between Byron and Hamlin, which I don't understand why Hamlin is mad at Byron. Or I don't know. I don't know. Like that race was such a mess. But all I know is that if Hamlin should be mad at someone, he should be mad at Harvick. I don't know why he was going after Byron, because Byron was a victim there at the end too. But overall, this race was just such a mess. Anyways, the podium. Truex won this race. Austin Dillon second. Kyle Busch third. That was the podium. That was it. That was like the quote-unquote medal ceremony. As for the top 10, Alex Bowman finished fourth. Had a quiet race. But pretty solid. Kyle Larson in fifth. Tyler Reddick sixth. Ryan Preece seventh. Ross Chastain finished 8th, Denny Hamlin 9th. Again, it's just so ironic. After all of this that happened, Chastain and Hamlin, they still finished right next to each other, despite all of the bumping and banging. That's just hilarious. And William Byron rounds out the top 10. Then, as for other drivers that were notable, Justin Haley finished 11th, the pole sitter, or rather the guy who set the fastest time in qualifying. Kevin Harvick, he starts off his final full-time season with a 12th place finish at the exhibition race. Christopher Bell, after having a tough day overall, he manages to come out of it with a 13th. Logano was honestly a bit of a disappointment. He never really showed any of the speed that he had shown last year when he won the race. He finished 16th. Almirola, another disappointment. Started off hot, but then after that bad choose on the first caution, he just lost all the track position and never recovered. He finished 18th. Chase Elliott finished 21st. He just didn't show any speed at all. If it wasn't for the last chance qualifier, he wouldn't even be in the main event. That was honestly another driver who disappointed me. Bubba Wallace 22nd. He was right there in contention up until the very end when Austin Dillon spun him out. But overall, I gotta say, the race was better than last year's at first. Like, presentation-wise, entertainment-wise, it was better than last year. Turning this race into a night race was just a great idea that it just turns out, the more I think about it, the more it's just a no-brainer. This race was always meant to be a night race. Sunday night race, not quite, like more like a Saturday night race, Saturday night short track action at the LA Coliseum. That would have been better. But overall, as for the race itself, the first half was great. Second half was disastrous. Again, that only green flag laps count, the race must end under green. Those two things need to go. Maybe, put that rule, maybe the green flag laps count, maybe, save it for the last 20, 25 laps. But the whole, the race must end under green. After what happened during last year's All-Star race, and seeing how that race ended, no. I do not want to see that rule in NASCAR anymore. That must end under green is a dumb idea. Not only NASCAR, but for any motorsports. I don't know who had the bright idea to decide that a race must end under green at all times. No. And especially if you need any more proof, just look at how the race ended. Fuel became a concern late in the race because of all of those caution laps. I believe the pace car led the most laps. But again, like I said, turning the clash back into a night race was a great idea. The next step will be to make it a Saturday night race. And honestly, I wouldn't mind having the clash stay at the LA Coliseum for a few more years. But again, in the long term, I still want the clash to be a rotating venue. I do not understand why some people want the Clash to be like a points race. This is an idea that NASCAR has had like maybe floating around. I don't know if this is true or not, but if NASCAR is really considering turning the LA Coliseum into a points race, this race is more than proof enough that it's not gonna work. It just won't. It just won't. Maybe again, just like last year, the Clash, could have been better. It was better than last year, but there's still some stuff that could be, improved upon. Again, like racing-wise, I already said my piece about the must enter the green stuff that needs to go. Maybe there was a more bigger crowd than last year. Now that I think about it, I know most of the people like they tuned in for the main event, but and again, I may be wrong, but I just felt like more. Maybe it was because of the energy, but maybe I felt like there were more people in this race than last year. The music performance, the music performances by the artists, they were better than last year. They got Cypress Hill, Wiz Khalifa, also Dixie D'Amelio, which I don't really care much about. But people were actually engaged. Again, don't let the Fox coverage fool you that their coverage is trash. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Their coverage was trash, especially of the halftime show. The Wiz Khalifa coverage the Fox did was really poor. Like, there were some people actually engaged. It's just that Fox wasn't paying attention. It was all on the artist, and they weren't putting audio of the crowd, which I don't know why they're not doing that. The pre-race though was horrible. The driver intros by teams, like introducing old teammates, it was a pretty good concept, but the execution was terrible. Like Joey McHale, the guy was just forcing the jokes to come out. He was just trying so hard to be funny, and towards the end, it looked like he just gave up and started like reading off of the script. But yeah, the one joke, I remember the one joke about like Michael Jordan where he said, "Oh yeah, he played for the Birmingham Barons and also he played like another sport that you may know about, that's basketball, stuff like that." That was so cringe, man. It made me laugh for a bit, but then I realized what the guy just said. Like, oh shit, yeah, that delivery of the joke just came out so cringe. But yeah, overall, was this edition of the Clash better than last year? Yes, only because it was a night race. Presentation-wise and racing-wise, that still remains to be seen. It was like more of the same overall, but turning this race into a night race may have been the way to go. Like, the Clash was always meant to be a night race from year one. I don't know why last year's edition was a day race now in hindsight, but overall, I definitely enjoyed the Clash more than last year. Just, again, don't make this into a points race, NASCAR. I know you love getting ideas like this, but no. There are way better options for a short track race in the West Coast than the LA Coliseum. And please, NASCAR, start exploring other venues for the Clash. Don't just stay in LA. Make the Clash a rotating venue. There is potential for this. Anyways, have said my piece. I'm done.